for those, I know quite a few people, but not everyone. My name is Alan Simpson. I'm EPCC's Technical Director, and I'm also Service Director for the new National Service ARCHER2, as and when it actually starts. So it formally started in May, but most of you will be aware that we don't have any new hardware, and that's been a bit problematic. So in terms of, I tried to take one of the talks that my colleague Lorna Smith gave in one of our webinars and adapt it to the remit that James gave me. I'd probably go through this reasonably quickly, but I'm happy to take questions on any aspect or indeed anything that I don't cover. So I'll just give an overview of the service. I would really want to talk about it very much from a user perspective, and then go through some of the areas that James highlighted, so I can talk about the ECSE program, which is restarting, what we're doing, planning and training and outreach, and throughout this is a sort of theme of how we want to engage with the communities. That's the HPC user community, the RSE community, and all of the other communities across the UK. It's been something that we've tried to enhance throughout the time that we have with Archer, but I think we're starting off on a even more positive footing on Archer2. So I think most people know who the partners are. The main research council is EPSRC, but NARC are also expected to be part of it at a sort of similar level to Archer, though as far as I understand, that's still being discussed between the research councils within UKRI. EPCC is responsible really for both the service provision, which is user support and system support, as well as the sort of more in-depth support, what I would see as the equivalent of the RSE activity, which UKRI labels CSE, computational science and engineering support, so somewhat different. The hardware will be provided by Cray or Hewlett-Packard, depending on quite how you view the linkage between those two companies. Just a very quick slide on the hardware. The intention is to have 23 liquid-cooled Cray Shasta mountain cabinets. This is a lot of nodes, nearly 6,000 nodes. Each node has two AMD Rome processors. The expectation is based on the benchmarking that the overall performance should be about 10 times the application performance of Archer. That's a pretty significant uplift. It obviously varies a bit based on different applications codes, but there are a lot of cores in this type of system. From my perspective, I think it's also very interesting to have an AMD system, something we used to see a lot of and hadn't for a while. And I think both the performance and performance for value from the AMD Rome processor seems very promising. I'm sure most of you will know Andy Turner. He's done a lot of benchmarking and he did a lot of work in this, so a lot of it we can't actually publish yet. And I thought it wasn't really particularly pertinent for here. So this is a slide that's somewhat challenging slide. So the Archer2 service is formally started on the 6th of May, but there are problems with the Cray Shasta software in terms of its scaling to multiple cabinets. That led to a delay in the initial drop, and then we hit the COVID-19 problem, which has an impact across the whole board at HP and Cray. However, we now have significant confidence again in the timeline, which up until a fortnight ago, I had no confidence at all in where we were going. So the approach that we're taking is that the initial drop will be a 4-cabinet system to provide service continuity. This should be roughly comparable performance to Archer. It's got somewhat fewer cores, but the cores should perform better on application software. So a sort of Archer size system for Archer2. We now have for this. The public statement from UKRI is this will be installed in mid-July and should be available by late August to some set of users. UKRI have not been clear about exactly who will be on, but at some point fairly soon after that, Archer1 will be turned off, and at that stage I imagine most users will be keen to be on the Archer2 initial system. Once there is a logistical challenge. There are 2 reasons for this well, there's a number of reasons for the 4-cabinet system. One is that's probably as much as Shasta software scales to on that time period, but I'm sure I'm not meant to say that. It's also logistical challenges. We are installing ARCHER2 in the same computer room as ARCHER1, and therefore there's not room or power for it until ARCHER1 is decommissioned. So the spore cabinet system will go into a different computer room. I think the most important reason for this is original plans had 11-week downtime for use, and that will be cut significantly. We're now expecting the total downtime to be no more than 2 or 3 weeks, which is much more manageable, I think, from that perspective. We expect to see a number of software upgrades through this process. The 4 cabinet system, I think, will probably go out in 1.2. The 23 cabinet system will hopefully be in 1.4, though it may be until 1.5 or later until everyone's genuinely happy with the software. So the only downtime is the final downtime. Once we have the 19 cabinet system installed, there's a short downtime where we take the 4 cabinet system and wheel it, what I would like to say is down the corridor, but it's unfortunately not quite as simple as that. But we wheel it into the other room and merge it to produce the 23 cabinet configuration that will be used for the performance test and stability trial. The intention is to have this full service available by the end of the year, and I think that looks very likely. We're expecting the performance test to be pretty early in December, maybe even at the end of November, and the stability trial to run sometime over the Christmas, before and after the Christmas period. This is not guaranteed. There are things like the quarantine may prevent the requisite engineers to get into the country and install the 4 cabinet system. We hope that that would only be a 2-week delay for quarantine, but given how many delays we faced in this process, it is not entirely, clear. I think if there's any questions on the timescales, I'd be better answering at the end, probably. In terms of the type of service we want to do, there are some key principles in it that we've really been working on in Archer and want to take forward more in ARCHER2. So the things like the way that we engage with the community has evolved very significantly over the last few years, and I hope it's continuing. The way that we address major issues like diversity, inclusion, and accessibility is very different. And also the approach that we've taken to things like quality management and information security. So with support of people like SSI and SOC RSE, we've instituted a code of conduct for training courses that anyone who's been involved in those other activities will recognize very quickly. One of the things that we wanted to do to go a step further in ARCHER2 was to have a clearly defined diversity and inclusion policy. We introduced this at the end of Archer, but we couldn't publicize it very much until the competition was over. But this is based on various ideas that we've had in discussions with SSI and other people. And it's certainly something that's evolving, but it really reflects the absolute necessity of getting these things right as we move forward. We're going to set up a diversity and inclusion group who will make sure that we're on track and make sure that they give us their support in addressing the various issues. And there'll be a diversity roundtable event coupled with a user group meeting. The other aspect of that is alongside diversity is accessibility. All material, the training material documentation website is being now developed with accessibility in mind. Halfway through the Archer service, we retrofitted that. We were able to do that successfully with the training material, but it was harder on the website because, as people know, once you've got a website up and running, it's pretty hard to reverse engineer it. But this time around, we're making sure that we're meeting all those needs at the start. The things that we've worked on really hard over the last few years at EPCC really are the ISO 9001 quality management system, and then follow along that with the ISO 27001 information security management system. I just put this in to reflect there's been a massive amount of work into this. I think the quality management system is just to make sure that we're more consistent. Information security is there for other reasons as well, not least, there's been various information security challenges this year on a number of systems. And I think it gives us a framework to deliver best practice in those areas. In terms of the way that we see the service, we've always seen the Archer and ARCHER2 service with the users right at the center, and the way that we support users, we're trying to continually work on and improve. The service desk will remain the key point of contact with users. It will be an integrated service desk that will have back end onto the CSE service, the SP in-depth service, the various CRE support activities as well. It's now staffed from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night, Monday to Friday. So that's a little bit longer than it used to be. Other than that, it is pretty similar. There's been a major emphasis on getting more feedback. Feedback is important in all of the things that we do around the ISO activities as well, because you have to look at getting feedback from users so that you can provide enhanced continual service improvement in essence. Without that, you don't really know if you're doing the right thing. For those of you who've used Archer in previous services, we will also be using SAFE to deliver the service desk, and for users to manage the ARCHER2 resources and those types of things as well. We really tried to rethink the approach that we were doing in light of things like ITIL and ISO 9001. That had been evolving during Archer, but we started on a different footing in ARCHER2. So we have these function leads. They've been incredibly valuable in this difficult transition period because we have some of the functions are very much focused on making sure that Archer runs smoothly, where other functions are focused on ensuring that we're well prepared for ARCHER2. And we're having quite a difficult transition period because, you know, we've got the training and ECSE are really now being funded under the ARCHER2 contract, but the actual service is really still ARCHER1. The ECSE funding I'll say a lot about. I think it's a critical element of ongoing support for the RSE groups across the UK, and we've taken a very open and transparent approach to that, which I'll outline further. The training programme has been something that we've been very committed to for a very long period of time. There's been an opportunity throughout the ARCHER2 bidding process to engage with people like Ian Bush and other members of the procurement working group and other members of the community to understand better how we can take that forward and make it, I think, a world-leading program. We set up a training panel. James here is one of the people on that, but we have a lot of other RSEs and RSE fellows from across the UK and also some international colleagues as well. And I think that's a very valuable aspect during our track. And I think the ring around side is all to do with the quality and information security, data security approach, and making sure that we're dealing with the feedback that we get from users to make sure that we don't just say, well, this is what you've got, like it or lump it, which is sort of something that happened 20 years ago, but to make sure that actually we're able to deliver something which is what people really want. You know, we thought a lot about the values that we wanted to embody within the service. And I think once you write them down, it makes you think more about it, and I think that's very positive. And we're having these sorts of discussions across Tier 2 as well. The way that we split up into the functions gives us a richer way of supporting users. So the technical operations function is making sure the programming environment is all there, whether that's applications, tools, libraries, and the documentation. Where in-depth support deals much more directly with users. There'll be activities like technical mini projects that we've introduced, say more on the next slide, where users will be able to apply for technical effort from the CSE team to get short technical projects to support their use of ARCHER2. There's actually things like application performance health check, which is something that we've discussed with SSI, and how the type of way that we can take those sorts of ideas forward, looking more at performance, for example, and scalability. And we've also provided a new feature, virtual consultancy sessions, where if somebody wants to, they can put in a query asking to speak to someone on the core CSE technical staff member about their requirements. Sometimes it's easier to discuss things that way, and that can be delivered typically on the same day as the request comes in. So we're very much looking at different ways that we can engage with users as directly as possible. It's also reflected by the spectrum of support. In Archer, there were really two ways that users engaged with the service. One was to submit a query, and some of those are very simple and some of those complex. And the other one was through the EC program, where you could apply for an ECSE program and get 6, 10, 12 months of effort to work on a particular code. It was pointed out to me that actually there were some gaps in that, and we could do things a little bit more cleverly. So in ARCHER2, we've instituted two new functions, really. One is the technical mini projects, which is a way of getting more effort from the CSE team on an in-depth problem. And then conversely, as well as the ECSE, where people bid into a panel and get money for themselves, as well as getting a full ECSE project, we're going to introduce a lightweight ECSE proposal, which gets a little bit less, well, gets less effort, but is significantly easier to apply for. And again, that would be money that can go out into RSE groups. It's not just, yeah. So the assumption is that most of the ECSE projects and most of the lightweight ECSE projects will be done by the RSE groups that are around the UK. And that link in, I think, to the next topic, which is the ECSE program. I think this is a core part of what I wanted to talk about today. So as with Archer and before that, the Hector DCSE program, this program will fund dedicated RSE staff embedded within the communities to develop the software base and enhance the benefit of ARCHER2 to UK science. So we expect this to be a core source of funding for RSE and RSE groups throughout the UK, and are very keen to see the users engage with those groups and bid jointly into the program. We want this to be ECSE to be evaluated by an independent panel. It's chaired actually by one of our international colleagues, but has representatives from across the user and RSE community. We want to do things financially in a very open way, very transparent way, but also to make sure not for profit. So what we did in Archer was that any money that we committed a certain number of person months for the program. If we managed to deliver that in a smaller budget, the remaining budget got fed back into that, and allowed us to deliver something like an extra 40 or 50 person months across the whole of Archer. And we're going to do exactly the same in ARCHER2. The way that it'll be funded will be the EPSRC standard 80% FEC rate or equivalent. So we expect most people to be 80% FEC rate. If that doesn't apply to some particular individual, that's not a problem, as long as the cost is roughly equivalent, or that the panel thinks that it's good value for money. But we did most of the funding last time around 80% FEC, but this time it was embedded in, and I think that's helpful. It gives clarity for us who were bidding to run it, and for anyone who wants to be involved in the ECSE program going forward. The size of the ECSE program is only slightly smaller than in ARCHER1. That's entirely due to the size of the available budget for the CSE activity, but there will be an average of 12 FTEs per annum over the next 4 to 5 years. That would be based on, as we said, 80% FEC. Any additional money will be used to provide additional ECSE staff months of effort as well. The first call opened on the 19th of May. It was a bit of a leap in the dark, as we didn't at that stage have any great confidence in the timeline for the hardware. It turns out to be about right, I think. We expect to get projects on, shortly after the hardware is installed. The technical evaluations were closed this week, and the call closes on the 7th of July. It looks like it's been very popular. It looks like you'll have maybe as many as 25 proposals for this, which will be the highest ever, which shows the pent-up demand for such activity. And I think also the importance that people put upon RSE work on their particular codes. We will have a regular pattern of calls, 3 per year, so we'll be essentially every 4 months. We're just the first 1 or 2 will identify a pattern, and thereafter it will be very regular. The next call will be open during September and October. The current guess is that will be open from the 8th of September to the 27th of October. So if anyone hasn't had a chance to put in a proposal this time, when we did get a lot, there will be an opportunity either to resubmit or to submit new proposals shortly after the summer. We're very keen to give people as much support as possible through this process, both in applying for it and as it runs. There are virtual consultancy sessions. We've already run a webinar on the ECSE program that was well attended and is available on the ARCHER2 YouTube channel. We're happy to engage with people throughout the process. Whenever they submit proposals, submit the technical assessment, people like me and the other RSE staff will look at that. And if there's any questions or we see areas for improvement, we have a feedback opportunity to make sure that the applicants don't miss out on telling us something that would help their proposal be successful. If they're unsuccessful, we'll also provide them with positive feedback and an opportunity to resubmit. The panel will provide advice as they did in ARCHER1. And we're happy to engage with people throughout the process and at the end of the process as well. Okay, moving on to training and outreach. Something that we need to be active in for a very time, but I think there's action now. Types that we get on ARCHER are not the same as we had 20 years ago, and it's important to reflect that. So we want to provide a very rich, diverse program of training that is responsive to the needs of users as they evolve. One of the very new elements is an explicit training tracks aimed at researchers, people who are using packages mostly, and at RSE's developers who are developing and improving packages. And we recognize that the training that one group needs is not identical to the other. We want to work very hard on accessibility and inclusivity of HPC training. One of the things that we'll do is we'll provide a variety of different routes. We'll provide online training in a sort of synchronous way, live broadcasts. We'll provide online self-service training. We'll provide traditional face-to-face training. We'll provide collaborative style workshop trainings. The intention is to make that there's a type of training that will suit everybody's needs and learning patterns. I think as much as anything, I think if you require everyone to go on a 2 or 3 day course somewhere, that's great for some people who enjoy getting away for a couple of days. But if you've got caring responsibilities or other constraints, that can be very difficult. And it's very much something that we want to address, and we pushed hard for that to be included in the ARCHER2 statement of requirements as well. We want to be very responsive to users' needs. So we've set up a training panel that's already met to provide guidance on the first year. And we're also going to have a user training forum that anyone can join and attend and make their comments heard. There's also, we're also very keen to do collaborative courses with the community. You know, that will mean in terms of identifying if you know users locally need a particular type of course, or if you'd like to, if you've got an idea of a course that we could develop with you or teach with you, all of those things that we're very much open to. Yeah, the diversity in pedagogical approaches and delivery mechanisms is very important to us. We've been very active in promoting the various carpentry courses and in the development of the HPC carpentry. And that's something that we want, we've really embedded into the structure of the approach that we're using. So this is the sort of key slide that we put together in terms of the approach that we wanted to take. There's an obvious, the RSE developer route is probably the one that we as a community have thought most about in terms of the training that we provide, you know, through software carpentry, HPC carpentry, and then the introduction to ARCHER2 for programmers. And we've considered where people might want to join that at different levels depending on their knowledge. We're also going to do a stream for data science, but I think the most important of the changes is the explicit stream for researchers, people who are expected to predominantly use packages and are focused more on science than on programming. And we want both generic courses like HPC carpentry and a new course called package use on ARCHER2, but also specific to certain applications, like introduction to a particular application. We've got a number of those targeted, and also advanced, how, as an applications, as a package user, how can I ensure that I'm doing the right thing and getting the most out of ARCHER2? And that will come in the intermediate and advanced courses and various tutorials and webinars. In terms of the locations, this is the map that we had for the ARCHER courses. We have planned and intended to run courses geographically spread throughout the UK. It will come as no surprise that over the first few months that will not be happening because it's impossible. But we're also very keen to collaborate with the RSE community on identifying appropriate topics, suggestions for locations of particular types of courses. If you'd like to help develop courses or training material or help teach it, or so that you can use our material, we can help you. You know, we're very open to a variety of different approaches that would work well. And please, if you have interest, please do contact us through the ARCHER2 service desk. You can do that in a variety of different ways, but the easiest is probably that email address. The current pandemic has meant our plans changed very rapidly. We had a major rethink of the initial approach. What we've essentially done is add a lot of webinars over the first few months. That was partly because we had no hardware, partly because we couldn't do a lot of travel, and we really wanted to engage with the ARCHER2 prospective user community. They've been incredibly successful. We've been mostly weekly. At worst, we're getting 20 people, but we've had over 100 at a couple of them as well. And then they're also made available on the ARCHER2 YouTube channel, so you can go back and look at them at your leisure. We've also we've run a couple of online courses already, and we're going to continue to run online courses for most of the rest of this year. I don't really know when things will open up and it will be convenient. I don't know when people want us to travel. I don't know when we'll feel our staff are safe to travel. But the assumption is over the next number of months, most of the courses will be online. Some of them will be run as in a traditional way with two pretty full-on days. Some of them we like to run things a half-day session once a week because we think those actually work better for people. But we'll run them in a variety of formats. We've done that already in Archer and got feedback, but we'll continue to get feedback and see what works for people as we go forward, because I think the key thing here is that different people need different things, and a variety of different approaches is really positive. In terms of the outreach event, again, we were all set that almost the last thing we did before lockdown was we were intending to go to the Big Bang Fair in Birmingham, which is our major outreach event of the year. We even shipped the stuff the week before, and then it was cancelled, probably wisely. But we're very keen both to look at outreach activities to young people to encourage them to get into, well, I don't really care whether it's computing, RSE work, STEM, anything at all in the science and engineering area, we're happy to encourage people to do. This is, some of you will know, ARCHER2 has been a really useful such event. We've also got a number of nice activities for engaging younger children and older children. We're also trying to broaden that out to adult engagement and lifelong learning as well. So we have a number of ideas. They've obviously been put a bit on hold, and the focus at the moment is very much seeing what we can do online in the next few months. And that's been something that the outreach team has engaged with very enthusiastically. So I did want to talk a bit about the way that we want to engage with the community. And the community is very broad here. It's HPC users, it's computational science people who might want to use HPC in the future. It's across tier 1 and tier 2. It includes RSEs and package users, and just really, to have a very open approach where we get as much feedback as we can. Feedback improvements, core of what we do now in terms of both ITIL, and that's embodied in our ISO 9001 approach. We're looking at multiple routes to provide feedback. Some of those will be face-to-face, some of those will be if you get a query of an opportunity to feedback, or if you attend a course or an online course, you'll be able to provide feedback. And just there's a general feedback form on the web. There's various formal meetings that you can. We're also not want to reinstigate some sort of user activity and a sort of leadership forum. So we're very keen to make sure that we have as many different routes as possible. As most of you will know, we've been very active in a variety of different community activities. We celebrate PC champions, and we're very pleased that James has been such an asset in that over the last number of years. And before that, Christopher Woods. We're active in HPC SIG. I chair the Tier 2 Technical Working Group. Andy Turner set up the Tier 2 RSE group that involves a number of RSEs from Tier 2 and Tier 3 sites. There's engagement. We've done joint events with SSI. We've run workshops alongside the SOC RSE conference and things like that. So we want to be very much involved with the community, and if people have suggestions how we can do that better, we're very keen about that as well. So I wanted to list some of the ways that we plan to engage with users and the community. Social media has become an important thing for some of us find that a bit of a struggle, but there's other people in my organization who are good with that, and we're very much more active, and those will continue that. The YouTube channel is an area that we are finding very important for dissemination of training material and other useful stuff. There'll be formal routes like a complaints procedure or the annual user survey. We're setting up an ARCHER2 steering group that will be chaired by Alice Brett. And we'll will again provide guidance for the way that we interact with users and the way that we engage with the community. I mean, I think, you know, we know something, but we definitely don't know everything. And the fact that there's other people out there with different viewpoints is really helpful. And we're really appreciative of the time that people have given up for the things like the training panel and other activities going forward. HPC Champions will still continue. Talk things about the collaborative training and the technical mini projects. We're very keen to get engagement with users even before this hardware. That's why we've one of my colleagues with setting up a very active webinar program. We've had webinars more or less every week, and we'll continue that into the summer. There's the expert callback service. Just if somebody wants a chat and just about whatever their problem is, or just some way of engaging with a service, they're very welcome to book that in a very lightweight way. We will have virtual ARCHER2 user group meetings, and probably one associated with an annual UK Leadership Computing Symposium. We're a flagship promotion of HPC and computational science in the UK. Okay, so I'm sorry, our timing is not perfect, but it's not too bad yet. We're really honored and excited to be continuing to do this work. It's something that I've been very committed to for a very long time. I started working in national services in 1994, and through most of my career, I've really enjoyed this. I'm really looking forward to ARCHER2. We're very keen to work with the HPCUs and the RSEs that are supporting them across the UK. We want to be flexible, responsive. We really care about feedback. We're not just, you know, we don't have to, you know, you can always bid and put feedback in and then ignore it thereafter. But actually, I think unless you understand what people want and how you can best deliver it, I think it's very easy to get out of touch, and we definitely don't want that. And of course, the focus always is on world-class computational science as well. So I'm sorry about the faff at the beginning. Hopefully that was covered at least some of the topics, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people would like.